Hey there, Booksy. Welcome back to my channel. Bookswapathon Readathon is upon us. Good morning. It's Sunday. It's about 9:30 and I just woke up. But Bookswapathon 2018 is here. So I'm going to get started with this book. This is going to be my first read. I would love to finish reading this book today. It is pretty short. It's less than 200 pages and I think I could knock it out, as long as I don't fall back to sleep. So it's Sunday evening, it's about 4:15, and so far I've read about 50 pages. So I'm heading to the bookstore now because what you do when you haven't read enough, you buy more books. This is Mecca. And they have like a pretty decent... Thank you. These are absolutely gorgeous. Look at these. They're $10. And it is, no, wait for it, McDonald's. Monday evening, 8 o'clock, I just got home. I was reading this earlier today and yesterday, but I think I'm going to take a little pause from it. I'm about halfway in, and I'm going to stop and I'm going to read this one, A Horse Walks into a Bar by David Grossman. This is the book that I got from the Goodwill a few days ago, and I would like to read it tonight. It's a little over 200 pages, I think. It's not even 200 pages. I could definitely read this tonight. So I'm at page 37 and I'm not sure how I feel about this book yet, but I'll tell you what it's about. It's a stand-up comedian named Dovali, and he's performing some routine. And for a while, it seems like we're reading a third-person narrative as we watch him deliver these deadpan lines, kind of slapstick comedy where he's insulting everyone who's in the audience. And then about 20 pages in, we're introduced to the narrator, who is someone who he's had a relationship with and who the comedian has invited to this event. First, I didn't realize that this was translated fiction, but the author is from Israel. The blurbs compare this book to Dostoevsky and Kafka, and I'm not sure how I feel about this brand of political satirical comedy yet. It is Tuesday morning. It is day 3 of Bookswapathon, and I finished A Horse Walks into a Bar by David Grossman. I don't know, but when I started reading this book, I completely forgot that it was the Man Booker International winner last year. So, of course, you know that this book means it's gonna detail some important international experience. And while I get the story that the author was trying to tell is heart-wrenching instead of heartwarming, so the comedian uses this time to perform with what seems to be carte blanche about what he will say and how long he will present. And he uses the time as some emotional and therapeutic catharsis where he offloads these tragedies that happened to him throughout his life, and he's involving these audience members in how he's dealing with it now as a 57-year-old man. And I did not enjoy this book in that way. I get the brilliance, I get the story, I get that it's showing this Israeli experience, but man, I kept thinking, if I was in that audience, even if I was one of those people who had been a part of his life and was especially invited to listen to him recount his life and how he dealt with the tragedies, I would have been very, very upset and offended and just plain mad. So no, I didn't rate this book high. I gave it a 3-star, and I'm ready to move on to something lighter, something more fun, something that's going to be a better reading experience. So I think later I'm going to read Pippi Longstocking. I was going to do the Twitter sprint with Derry, but I completely forgot. I'm at the supermarket and oh look, books! There's Elizabeth Strauss. All the way down here. There's some literary fiction all the way down at the bottom. Ellen Hildebrand. Oh look, The Immortalist is here. It's 8 o'clock and it is cozy reading morning with Lauren and the books. 2 hours of reading in bed or something like that. Finishing up Pippi Longstocking this morning for cozy reading morning and hanging out with Lauren and the books. I think I got to the first chapter yesterday, so now I'm at Pippi is a thing finder and gets into a fight. That's page 24, and I think I could get to page 70 by the end of the hour, which is in 20 minutes. 8:52 and I've gotten to page 74, end of chapter 5. I'm gonna go get some cozy reading food, some breakfast, and I'll be back for round 2. I'm also gonna sign in for the Bookswapathon sprints at 9 o'clock. So Derby, I'm coming for you. Cozy reading morning is here. Breakfast, books, and what's the other thing? Bed. I just finished reading Pippi Longstocking, and I had to tell you guys, this is also translated fiction. It was first written in Swedish, so if you listen.
She was 9 years old, and she lived there alone.
It's 10 o'clock on Thursday night, and my work week is mostly done. I don't have any more students to tutor. I don't have any more writing assignments that need to be submitted. And so now for the rest of the weekend, I can focus on reading. Today I finished this one because I was home this morning, and I did the August cozy reading morning with Lauren from Lauren and the Books, and she was doing a cozy afternoon, but for me it was 8 o'clock, so I was in bed and I was reading this. I finished it, and then I started this one, which is Erta Muller's The Fox Was Ever the Hunter, and this is a collection of stories that make up a novel, and I've been doing a buddy read with Sean the Book Maniac, and so we're reading it kind of slowly because it demands to be read slowly. As a matter of fact, I've read this much, maybe about 40 something pages, but in reality I've read maybe 150 pages because I've read every story twice. One of them I read 3 times because there's a lot of imagery and you're not sure what the connections are going to be from one thing to the next. So I feel like I have to reread it to make sure that I didn't miss anything, and quite often when I've read it the second time I realize that I did miss something the first time. So I guess it's something I'm going to be doing. It's 230 pages, so I'm going to count this as a 460 page project. Not that I can count 460 pages when I'm done reading it, but that's it. So I don't think I'm gonna read any more of this tonight. I'm gonna probably read something else. I do have other books to read for the readathon, so maybe I'll start on my Booker Prize book, Rites of Passage, or I can't remember what else was on my TBR. So I'm gonna read something else tonight. Gonna get some dinner. I know it's really late, but I have to eat. It's close to midnight, but I'm gonna try to read a couple of chapters of this one before I go to bed. I have a late night snack, some grapes, and my book, and my Snuggie, because even though it's summer, it's about 70 degrees right now, and I like it cozy. So cozy morning and a cozy night. It wouldn't be a video if I didn't come by to check out the bookshelves, the used bookstore, see what's available. I'm heading to the bookstore because I need to find a title by an author that was translated posthumously, where the author is a female. Hopefully the translator is also a female. And I do have a bookstore that I go to sometimes. It's right here. Cathedral, that's opposite. It's huge church. So it's on my walk as I head down to the bookstore. It's on 112th Street in Amsterdam. I found the books, but I wasn't intrigued by the synopses, so I'm gonna have to look again. Going back home, gonna do some more research, and it's Friday evening, which means that Bookswapathon is almost finished for me. Usually when a readathon ends on a Saturday, it means that when I've wrapped up my reading on Friday, quite often I don't get back to it. because I keep the Sabbath, as some of you might know. And so I'm not reading a lot of fiction on Friday or on Saturday. Today I read Dubliners by James Joyce. My intention was to do a whole St. Patrick theme while I was reading this book about Ireland, which is why I'm wearing green, but that didn't work out. So for now, I'll just tell you that I read the stories and I love them. I think James Joyce might have been one of the pioneers of the genre that we consider to be Irish fiction. I really like the scenes that James Joyce painted in here, and reading all of these stories together made me feel like I was reading a novel where the main character was Dublin. Each story shows the scenes that we kind of expect to be stereotypical of this Irish setting, where there are very strong influences from religious figures, both from the church itself, but also the clergymen who represent the church and its power, as well as we get to see the interaction between youth and age. Even in a single story, one example was an encounter where we had this young boy who, in the first part of the story, we were treated to him as a reader, as an avid bookworm, being entranced by American fiction. Because he's going to this private religious school, the priest chastises him for that interest. And then later he meets this other old man who also tries to endear himself to him with a love of fiction, but then seems to also chastise him for the same thing that he wants him to love. And so even within these stories, there's a paradox that the author presents, and I loved it. I love this collection. I'm giving it 4 stars because it wasn't perfect, but it did keep my attention. And I don't know if I'm gonna run out to read everything that James Joyce wrote, but I love this collection. So 4 stars for this one, and I think this is the end of my readathon vlog. And so that's it. That's the end of Bookswapathon. This once a year event to change things up a little bit has come and gone. And so these are the 5 books that I attempted during the Bookswapathon. The first one was to read a book that you got from someone else. That's Cows, Pigs, Wars, and Witches. I don't have that book right now, but I am almost finished with it. I have 2 more chapters left. Then there's an on-haul swap, to take something from your shelf and donate it and then take a book home. And of course I read this one. This was my first book that I finished for the Bookswapathon. This is A Horse Walks into a Bar by David Grossman. And then there was a TBR swap. Swap out how you choose one of the books on your TBR this month. I watched someone else's TBR and just picked a book. And so for that one, I was reading Herta Muller's The Fox Was Ever a Hunter. I'm still reading this one because I'm doing the buddy read with Sean over at Sean the Book Maniac. So that's a book that I attempted but haven't quite finished yet. And then there was a genre swap to read something out of my comfort zone, and for that I read Pippi Longstocking by Astrid Lindgren. And I chose this one because I don't usually read a lot of children's fiction, but this was a really good departure from my usual reading. And then we have the setting swap, either read a book in a different place or read a book from a different setting that you haven't visited. And for that I had James Joyce's Dubliners, and you know how I felt about this one. I talked about it in my vlog, so I finished that one. And then there was the cover swap, to read a book that has the letters SWA and P on the cover, and I didn't quite get to that, except this one also has SWA and P. There's SWA in Word Was, and there's a P in the Nobel Prize up here. So this one qualifies, except I didn't finish that one either. The Cows, Pigs, Wars, and Witches also has SWA and P in the title, and of course I didn't finish that one in the readathon either, but I attempted. So for me, Bookswapathon was a success. I finished 3 books. I started 2 more, and so for me that was a great reading week. I'm now in the middle of the Women in Translation readathon, so you'll hear more about that from me later. And so that's it for the Bookswapathon this year. Let me know in the comments if you participated and what it was like for you. So we'll talk down there, and until next time, happy reading. Bye.